is Royce Jacob. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Biotech Boom, a series where we talk about biotechs. Hasn't been all that long since we've recorded one of these, but definitely feels like it has. A lot has happened since then. Most notably, the president himself getting the Rona. So obviously that brings a lot of attention to the sector, and I'm excited to talk to you guys about it. All right, so let's get straight into it. As always, we'll go over each topic that we're going to be discussing, and then we'll dive into each one individually. In front of us, of course, TradingView, where we will be looking at the following charts today in this order: Sorrento, Moderna, Inovio, NVAX, and VXRT. All right. So in terms of articles, we only have a few to go over, but we will take a look at each of these charts. I will let you guys know what I'm thinking about all of these from a technical perspective. Once again, in terms of articles, we will only be covering Sorrento and Moderna. This first one: if COVID-19 antibody cocktails become popular, Sorrento stock could double, says analyst. So again, considering Trump just took a bunch of antibody cocktails, that's the primary thing at the top of everyone's heads. Obviously, vaccines are important too. Just COVID in general is floating around the ether right now. But specifically, antibody cocktails, which Sorrento is working on, are like at the forefront of what everyone's thinking about, what is interesting within this sector, in my personal opinion. So we will take a look at this article. It dives into it, and it is interesting, and I wanted to share it with you guys, okay? So we'll kick it off with that. We'll also talk about 3 reasons to buy the most popular coronavirus stock on Robinhood. So Moderna is, I guess, one of the most popular stocks on Robinhood. I didn't even know that. I actually knew Sorrento was. I didn't know Moderna was. But he goes into not only why like Robinhood is just kind of this is a headline for the most part, but he goes into reasons why the vaccine, the pipeline, and the valuation are important, and I agree with him. I always like this guy's articles. Keith Spates of the Motley Fool. So shout out to Keith for always providing solid articles for me to read and share with you guys, okay? So as always, before we do get into it though, I will ask you guys to please give the video a like if you do go on to gain value from it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and of course check out my complete portfolio daily newsletter if you want to know exactly what's in my portfolio and exactly when I trade them, when I trade all these biotech stocks, when I pick up a position, when I pick up new positions. Yeah, I do send out an email newsletter every trading day during market hours, letting you guys know which trades I made and just giving you guys my thoughts on the overall markets as a whole, okay? I talk about pretty much everything in there. All right, so you do get daily updates. First link in the description. I appreciate it if you check it out. If not, no worries. Let's get into this. As always, we will cover the fundamentals first. So once a specialist in oncology, drugs, and pain management, Sorrento Therapeutics has pivoted to attack COVID-19 head-on in 2020, offering a smorgasbord of tests to detect the novel coronavirus, vaccines to prevent it, and therapies to combat it. As the president's illness illustrates, the coronavirus contagion is still very much a threat and no one is safe. With this in mind, Dawson James analyst Jason Colbert released a note focusing in on the president's doctor's use of polyclonal cocktails of antibodies to fight the virus, and what that means for Sorrento Therapeutics, whose treatments haven't been administered to the president that we know of, but might soon become available to other patients in need. Sorrento is gearing up to hold an R&D Day event on October 13th. So I've heard some of you guys mention this before. I really don't want this to seem like a battery day. If you guys remember Tesla's battery day when there was so much hype, and then the hype really priced into the stock. And again, you guys buy the hype, sell the news is a cliche statement for a reason. So be careful with this. But again, it could be very promising. I don't know. Anyway, this event's on the 13th. At which the company will discuss its comprehensive multimodal approach to COVID-19 and the progress it has made on various COVID-fighting endeavors. 2 of Sorrento's projects in particular interest Colbert: the STI 1499, which Sorrento has branded COVIDguard, and STI 2020 antibodies. As the analyst explains, both STI 1499 and STI 2020 demonstrated protective activities against SARS-CoV-2 infection in Syrian golden hamsters. I don't know why they use Syrian golden hamsters, but they sound sick. Not only sick with COVID, but sick with like 2 Ks. That's a curious statement to make, of course, and if it suggests to you that Sorrento isn't particularly far along development of this therapy, you're right. In fact, Colbert admits that STI 1499, which the analyst considers Sorrento lead candidate as a coronavirus therapy, is only in phase 1 clinical trials at this point. No mention of how far along STI 2020 might be. That being said, the analyst notes that a 2,000 microgram dose of STI 1499 reduced virus load between the detection limit and 60% of animals tested, good metrics, and cut the viral load by at least 10x in the remaining 40%. STI 2020, meanwhile, showed efficacy at just 500 micrograms, reducing the evidence of the virus to undetectable levels in 100% of animals tested. 100%. We all like those metrics, right? So that is very promising. And again, you guys, these things take time. You can't just start injecting these into people, at least legally. But the animal studies are looking very promising for Sorrento. Colbert muses that should the two antibodies be mixed into a cocktail, the likes of the Regeneron cocktail that was administered to President Trump, the product could remain effective even if virus mutations occur, wiping out a patient's infection before it has a chance to mutate and survive. Indeed, says Colbert, Sorrento is already working on such a cocktail that it dubs Covishield, and the analyst assumes that the company will be successful in developing this. Still, as a valuation exercise, he assigns the cocktail only a 50% chance of success. Success meaning, in this case, that both the cocktails work and survives a phased process of FDA approval and is ultimately approved. Colbert believes that this could happen rapidly and argues that over and above Sorrento's core activities on oncology and pain management, COVID treatments therefore offer a significant valuation potential for the stock. How much potential are we talking here? Working the numbers, Colbert arrives at the conclusion that Sorrento stock can be worth as much as $21 a share, roughly twice what the shares cost today. Accordingly, he rates Sorrento stock a buy, of course. It has been relatively quiet when it comes to other analyst activity in the last 3 months. Only two analysts have issued ratings. However, as they were both buys, the word on the street is that Sorrento is a moderate buy. Based on the $25 average price target, shares can climb 130% higher in the next 12 months. Okay, so again, you guys, analyst, that was a really good breakdown. I really like that analyst breakdown, but keep in mind, you guys, analysts are just people too. They have their biases. I always say this. So take what analysts say with a grain of salt. And so taking a look at Sorrento is still falling. So let's just check out what Sorrento's high was back in the heyday when we were talking about it. Back in early August, Sorrento reached a high of $19.30, almost $20. Right now, I really like the look of Sorrento's chart a lot more. We're not seeing all that much volume on Sorrento, especially compared to where we were when we saw that huge rally back in August, which I actually like to see. It's still showing strength. It's showing a solid uptrend without that much volume. So that means if they drop some banging news, get some volume in here, that should do, we should do even better than the last run. Where, again, you guys, I always say this, and I will keep saying this. The further we progress into all of these companies developing their products, whether it's a vaccine or treatment like Sorrento, the more fundamentals take place and the more fundamental value these companies has because they're making more progress, as opposed to back when we rallied a few months ago when it was more speculative. And again, you guys, these are still speculative, but the further along we get, the more the fundamentals are fundamentals, and it's not speculation, it's all fundamentals. Okay, so Sorrento is following a very nice, just look like super clean uptrend pattern. It wouldn't surprise me at all to once again retest this upward up line of resistance, this trending up line of resistance right here. That would bring us right to almost like, you guys, if this hits it within the next week or so, this would bring us right to where I expected us to bounce up to, like for the past month already, at about $14, okay? So say, again, you guys, of course it depends on when it hits this, but I do think that it's very likely that we'll once again retest this line of resistance on this uptrend. When that hits, say it hits tomorrow, that would bring us to like a $13.50 Sorrento. Say it's near the end of the month, it would bring us to $15. Of course, the more you expand it, the higher the price target gets. But again, you guys, I'm very bullish on the fact, it's such a clean pattern. This is such a tradable pattern. I would expect Sorrento to once again retest this upper line of resistance right here. Okay, so that's Sorrento. Moderna, you guys, we will cover this Moderna article, and then we will take a look at the other players in the sector on the charts. So, Robinhood investors really like the coronavirus stocks right now. 9 of the 100 most popular stocks on the trading platform are for drug makers developing experimental COVID-19 therapies or vaccine. I actually didn't know that until I read this article, so that's surprising, but that's actually good news because we've been talking so much about how retail really dictates a lot of the market in 2020. One of those coronavirus stocks, though, stands head and shoulders above the rest in terms of popularity among Robinhood investors. Moderna. See, I didn't know that. It's crazy. And is the biotech stock worthy of its lofty ranking? There's a pretty good argument to be made that it is. Here are 3 reasons to buy the most popular coronavirus stock on Robinhood. 1, its coronavirus vaccine. You probably won't be surprised that the top reason to buy Moderna is its coronavirus vaccine candidate, MRNA 1273. The company's experimental mRNA vaccine is currently one of the only 4 COVID-19 vaccines that are being evaluated in late-stage clinical trials in the U.S. It's still too soon to know that if mRNA 1273 will be both safe and effective. However, we'll know in the near-term future. Moderna expects to submit for FDA emergency use authorization on November 25th if all goes well in the late-stage clinical trials. Assuming that Moderna does win regulatory clearance for mRNA 1273, the company stands to rake in a lot of money. It's lined up an agreement with the U.S. government to supply 100 million doses of the vaccine for for $1.5 billion, doing a lot of reading right now. That deal also includes an option to supply another 400 million doses of mRNA 1273. In addition, Moderna has either finalized or is in the process of finalizing supply agreements with the European Commission, Canada, and Japan. So again, you guys, we've covered all of these as they've been released. They have so many deals with so many nations across the globe, and that's good, of course. But of course, they do have to create an efficacious vaccine first. 2, its pipeline. While mRNA 1273 deserves all of the attention that it's getting, there's a bigger story about Moderna that many investors could be missing: the Biotech's pipeline. With mRNA 1273, Moderna inserts RNA into the recipient's cells. It's engineered to instruct the ribosomes in those cells to produce an exact copy of the spike protein on the surface of SARS-CoV-2, the novel coronavirus that causes COVID-19. The body's immune system then learns how to fight this antigen. Moderna is counting on this method building immunity against infection by actual coronavirus. The company firmly believes that if mRNA approach works with COVID, it will work with a wide range of vaccines targeting other viruses. Moderna's pipeline currently includes 6 other mRNA vaccines. The mRNA strategy isn't limited to just viral diseases, though. Moderna also has 7 other clinical stage candidates using mRNA to target indications including cancer and coronary artery disease. If mRNA 1273 is successful, and the signs are pointing to that being the case, Moderna should be in a great position to also achieve success in other diseases. The company's opportunities in other areas could eventually be much greater than its sizable opportunity with COVID-19. So again, you guys, this same thing applies to so many of these other biotechs. Is that they're at the forefront of everyone's attention right now. They're really exploding. There's a lot of hype behind them because of their work in the COVID sector, or against COVID, against SARS-CoV-2. But there's so many other things in their pipeline. There's a lot of other, like Sorrento is making a lot of progress within the cancer space and treating cancer. So they're working on a lot of very revolutionary things that aren't just COVID. And especially Moderna, because this mRNA method of vaccination is so new. They don't have any products on the market yet, actually, but it's looking very promising. And if their vaccine works, if this mRNA technology proves to be effective, then that's super, super bullish for Moderna, not only in regard to COVID again, but for the future of their entire company. And that's like invaluable at this point. Okay, so 3, its valuation. Speaking of value, you might think listing Moderna's valuation as a reason to buy the stock is ridiculous. After all, the company sports a market cap of $28 billion with no approved product yet to generate revenue. Even including Moderna's revenue from collaborations and grants, the biotech shares traded a whopping 234 times sales. But Moderna isn't nearly as overvalued as it looks in the first glance. The company could be only a few months away from having its first blockbuster product on the market. Wall Street recognizes this. Analysts peg Moderna's forward price-to-earnings ratio at 20. That's lower than the forward price-to-earnings multiple of the S&P 500. So that's crazy if that's true. If their forward PE ratio is 20, or if their expected forward PE ratio is 20, then that's crazy. Keep in mind, you guys, Tesla is at 1100. 20 is about standard. I think 30 is probably what the S&P is trading at. Excuse me again. I think 30 is probably what the S&P is trading at, but Tesla, you guys, Tesla is at 1100. Always hate to roast Tesla, but their PE is insane. So 20 PE is very impressive. Remember also that any projected earnings figures are based solely on the potential for mRNA 1273. As we've already discussed, though the coronavirus vaccine could merely be the tip of the iceberg for Moderna, thanks to the company's deep pipeline and its potential to target even more diseases. Don't be surprised if in the not too distant future, Moderna's current market cap of $28 billion looks dirt cheap in retrospect. So again, you guys, as I said prior to getting into this part, if this mRNA vaccine proves to be effective and they can apply that to all the rest, and more importantly, if it works, the FDA is going to be a much more lenient and much more understanding and really take in the fact that they have these other projects in the pipeline that use this technology, this mRNA technology. That's huge. That's huge for the entire pipeline. Again, they have six other prospects in their pipeline right now that could definitely come to market pretty soon if this COVID vaccine proves effective. Okay, so very bullish there. That was a lot of reading, you guys. Sorry, I stumbled. You got to forgive me for stumbling a few times in there. But that said, let's get into the charts on Moderna. Moderna looking solid. Like Moderna, you guys, I've been telling the newsletter this for like the past week now. So as always, shout out to the newsletter. I appreciate you guys, truly do. You guys, Moderna has just been looking like it's